You will die, and everything you've ever built, everyone you've ever loved, every moment you've carefully constructed, will vanish. Not someday far away, someday soon. And when that day comes, none of the stories you tell yourself right now will matter. So the question isn't whether life has meaning. The question is whether you're brave enough to face what happens when you stop pretending it does. In the next 15 minutes, you'll discover something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. That the absence of inherent meaning isn't a tragedy. It's a liberation. You'll learn how the ancient Stoics turned this terrifying truth into the foundation of unshakable inner peace, and why the moment you stop searching for meaning is precisely when you begin to create it. This isn't philosophy for classrooms. This is philosophy for the 3 a.m. panic, the career collapse, the moment you realize you've been living someone else's life. We're taught from childhood that life must have meaning, that somewhere, written in the fabric of reality, there's a purpose waiting to be discovered. We're told to find our calling, chase our passion, uncover our destiny. But what if that entire framework is the problem? What if the desperate search for meaning is what's making us miserable? Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, ruled the known world. He had power, wealth, legacy. And yet, in his private journals, he wrote to himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not someday, right now." He understood something we've forgotten. Meaning isn't found in the grand narrative. It's forged in the present moment, in how you respond to what's in front of you. But here's the reversal. Most people think Stoicism is about accepting meaninglessness and becoming cold, detached, emotionless. They're wrong. The Stoics weren't pessimists. They were realists who discovered that once you stop demanding the universe justify your existence, you become free to justify it yourself. They didn't resign to emptiness. They filled it with intention. Consider your own life right now. How much energy do you waste asking why? Why did this happen to me? Why isn't my life different? Why don't I feel fulfilled? These questions assume there's supposed to be an answer, a cosmic customer service desk where you can file a complaint about the unfairness of existence. There isn't. And the moment you accept that, everything changes. Epictetus was born a slave. He had less freedom than almost any human could imagine. And yet, he became one of history's greatest teachers of freedom. How? He realized that meaning isn't bestowed by circumstances. It's created by perception. He wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Not because positive thinking changes reality, but because your reaction is the only territory you actually control." Here's the uncomfortable truth that follows. If meaning isn't given, then suffering isn't meaningful either. The pain you're experiencing right now, the anxiety that wakes you at night, the feeling that you're wasting your life, none of it means anything beyond what you decide it means. This sounds harsh. It's actually the most compassionate truth you'll ever encounter. Think about the last time you failed at something important. A relationship ended. Project collapsed. An opportunity slipped away. You probably tried to find meaning in it. Lessons learned. Growth achieved. Everything happens for a reason. But what if it didn't happen for a reason? What if it simply happened, and the meaning is what you do next? The Stoics had a practice called amor fati, love of fate, not acceptance. Love, not tolerance of what happens, but an active embrace of it as the only raw material you have to work with. Because wishing reality were different is the definition of suffering. But here's where most people misunderstand this philosophy. They think it means passivity. It doesn't. It means radical responsibility. If nothing has inherent meaning, then you are entirely responsible for the meaning you create. You can't blame the universe, fate, or circumstances. Your life's meaning is your authorship, your burden, your freedom. Consider the modern trap of purpose-seeking. We're told to find work that matters, relationships that fulfill us, experiences that transform us. We scroll through curated lives, each one seemingly brimming with significance, and wonder why ours feels empty. But those lives are performances. Behind every meaningful-looking existence is a human being who also wakes up some mornings and wonders what the point is. Seneca, perhaps the most practically minded Stoic, was one of the richest men in Rome. He had access to every pleasure, every distraction, every supposed source of meaning the world could offer. And he wrote, "Life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future." The entire chase for meaning is often just an escape from the present, which is the only place meaning can actually exist. Here's the shift. Meaning isn't something you find. It's something you practice, like a muscle, like a skill. Every moment you're alive, you're either practicing creating meaning or practicing avoiding it. When you scroll mindlessly, you're practicing meaninglessness. When you have a difficult conversation, you're practicing meaning. When you do the hard thing nobody's watching, you're practicing meaning. But this creates a new problem. If you're responsible for meaning, what do you base it on? The Stoics had an answer: virtue. Not virtue as moral superiority, but as excellence of character. Courage, wisdom, justice, temperance. These aren't arbitrary values. They're the qualities that make human life workable, that create coherence between who you are and how you act. Think about the times you've felt most alive. Not happiest, most alive. You probably weren't comfortable in those moments. You were challenged, tested, uncertain. But you were present. You were creating meaning in real time, whether you realized it or not. Before we go deeper, I want to ask something of you. If this exploration is resonating, if you're feeling that uncomfortable recognition that comes with hard truth, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. And in the comments, share one question you're sitting with right now about meaning or purpose. Not a statement, a question. Because living the questions is sometimes more honest than pretending we have answers. The ancient Stoics understood something we've medicalized. Anxiety about meaning isn't a disorder. It's appropriate. You should feel uncertain. You should question whether your life matters. The problem isn't the question. It's that we've been taught the question should have a single, permanent answer. It doesn't. Meaning is something you renegotiate constantly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Not in achievement, not in recognition, not in legacy. In the quality of his own mind." This is the ultimate reversal. We spend our lives trying to make our lives mean something to the world. The Stoics suggest we should focus on making our lives mean something to ourselves. But here's what that actually looks like. You have a job you're not sure matters. Every morning, you can approach it as meaningless drudgery or as an opportunity to practice excellence. Not excellence for reward, but excellence as an expression of character. The work itself hasn't changed. Your relationship to it has. That shift is everything. The Stoics were so focused on death not because they were morbid, but because death is the ultimate reminder that significance is temporary. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Not to be grim, but to be awake. To stop postponing meaning until conditions are perfect." Here's the modern parallel. How many times have you thought, "I'll focus on what really matters once I finish this project, once I have more money, once the kids are older"? You're postponing the practice of meaning. And every day you postpone it, the skill atrophies. Here's where the philosophy becomes practical. You wake up tomorrow. Nothing external has changed. You still have the same life, same problems, same uncertainties. But you've accepted that meaning isn't waiting to be discovered. It's waiting to be practiced. What do you actually do? First, you stop asking the wrong questions. "What's my purpose?" is the wrong question. It assumes a singular, discoverable answer. Better question, what's worth doing right now? Not what will fulfill you forever, but what's worth your attention in this moment. The Stoics called this appropriate action, doing what the situation calls for, not what your ego demands. Think about a moment of crisis. Someone you love is suffering. Do you stop to question whether helping them serves your grand purpose? No, you act. The meaning is self-evident. Most of life is like this if you stop intellectualizing it. Meaning is available everywhere. We just overlay it with existential anxiety. Epictetus taught his students to distinguish between what's up to us and what's not up to us. Sounds simple. It's revolutionary. You're anxious about whether your life matters in the grand scheme. Not up to you. whether you act with integrity in the next hour. Up to you. The first question is paralyzing. The second is empowering. But here's the reversal. Even your ability to create meaning isn't entirely up to you. Your mind, your circumstances, your energy, these fluctuate. Some days you'll feel connected to purpose. Other days you'll feel lost. The Stoics would say both states are indifferent. What matters is whether you maintain your practice regardless of how you feel. This is why discipline is more important than motivation. Motivation is the feeling that something matters. Discipline is the practice of acting as if it matters even when you don't feel it. Marcus Aurelius often wrote to himself like a coach giving a pep talk. Get up. Do your work. Don't complain. Not because it's inherently meaningful, but because the practice of discipline creates coherence. Consider the people you admire most. People you actually know who seem to live with quiet integrity. They probably don't talk much about meaning or purpose. They're too busy embodying it. They do their work, care for their people, face their challenges without drama. They've accepted that meaning is made in the doing, not the contemplating. But modern life makes this harder. We're overwhelmed with options. Every choice branches into 1,000 possibilities. The Stoics had constraints. We have infinite optionality, which creates its own prison. How do you practice meaning when you're paralyzed by choice? The answer is commitment. Not permanent commitment, but full commitment to what you've chosen right now. You chose this job, this relationship, this city. Stop hedging. Stop keeping one foot out the door. Be here. Full commitment means accepting that you'll never know if you made the right choice. There is no right choice. There are only choices and what you make of them. Think about your current sources of anxiety. Underneath most of them is a story about how your life should be different. You should be further along. You should have figured this out by now. These shoulds are your mind arguing with reality. And reality always wins. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Your fear that your life doesn't matter is worse than the reality of not mattering. Because in reality, whether you matter in some cosmic sense is irrelevant. The question is whether you're suffering unnecessarily by demanding certainty from an uncertain universe. But this doesn't mean nothing matters. It means you get to decide what matters." The Stoics had a concept called the inner citadel, a fortress of character that external circumstances can't touch. Your meaning lives there, not in achievement or recognition, but in who you're becoming. Here's what building that looks like. Every day you make small decisions. Get up on time or hit snooze. Have the difficult conversation or avoid it. Do the work or distract yourself. Each decision is practice. Each one either reinforces the person you want to be or erodes it. You're always moving toward coherence or away from it. The Stoics called this living in accordance with virtue, but we can translate it. Living in alignment with your own stated values. If you say you value health but neglect your body, you're creating internal chaos. If you say you value relationships but never initiate connection, you're living incoherently. The anxiety you feel isn't because life lacks meaning. It's because your actions don't match your values. This is why the Stoics emphasized self-examination. Marcus Aurelius would review his day each night, not to judge himself, but to notice patterns. Where did he act with integrity? Where did he react from ego or fear? This practice creates awareness, and awareness creates choice. But consciousness is uncomfortable. It's easier to distract yourself than to sit with the question of whether you're living well. It's easier to scroll, binge, numb, escape. The modern world offers infinite anesthesia. And every time you choose it, you're choosing not to practice meaning. Think about the last time you did something genuinely difficult. Not impossible, but at the edge of your capability. There was probably resistance beforehand, struggle during, and satisfaction after. That sequence is the shape of meaning. Easy things don't generate meaning. They generate pleasure, which fades. Difficult things you choose generate meaning, which accumulates. The Stoics were clear. Comfort is not the goal. Character is the goal. Living well is the goal. And living well often means choosing the harder path. Not for the sake of suffering, but because the harder path is usually where your values live. Here's the modern trap. We've been sold the idea that life should be easy, that struggle means something's wrong. The Stoics knew better. Struggle is the texture of life. If you're waiting for life to get easy before you engage with it fully, you're waiting for death. The meaning is in the engagement with difficulty, not in its absence. Epictetus had a powerful reframe. Difficulties show what men are, not what you achieve in ease, but who you become in hardship. The crisis, the failure, the loss. These are the moments that reveal and shape character. If you're avoiding difficulty, you're avoiding the primary material of meaning. So the question becomes, what difficulty are you willing to choose? Because you'll have difficulty either way. The difficulty of discipline or the difficulty of regret. The difficulty of courage or the difficulty of living small. You don't get to choose whether your life is hard. You get to choose what it's hard for. This is the ultimate Stoic insight. Freedom isn't the absence of constraint. It's the choice of your constraint. You're going to be bound by something: fear, opinion, comfort, obligation. The question is whether you bind yourself to something worthy. What do you bind yourself to? Marcus Aurelius, facing plague, war, betrayal, and the burden of empire, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The things that seemed to block his path became the path itself. The obstacle didn't have inherent meaning, but his response to it created meaning. You have obstacles right now. Things that feel like they're preventing you from living a meaningful life. What if they're not preventing it? What if they're constituting it? What if the meaning you're searching for is in how you respond to precisely these obstacles? Here's the final reversal. The search for meaning is often what prevents meaning. As long as you're looking for it, you're not creating it. As long as you're asking whether your life matters, you're not doing the things that would make it matter. The question itself is a form of avoidance. But doing what? The Stoics would say, what's in front of you? What needs doing? What your role demands? If you're a parent, be present with your children. If you're a worker, do excellent work. If you're a friend, show up. The meaning isn't in grand gestures. It's in the daily practice of being who you say you are. This is why the Stoics could face death calmly. Not because they believed in an afterlife or because they'd achieved some final meaning, but because they'd practiced living well every day. When death came, there was nothing left undone. Not in terms of achievement, but in terms of character. You won't complete your life in the sense of finishing all your goals, but you can complete your life in the sense of living in integrity with your values. Every day that you do that is complete. Every day you don't create a gap between who you are and who you want to be. That gap is the primary source of meaninglessness. So the practice is this: close the gap. Notice when you're living incoherently. Adjust. Notice when you're acting from fear rather than courage. Adjust. Notice when you're avoiding what matters. Adjust. This isn't dramatic. It's the quiet, daily work of building a life that feels true. And here's what happens when you do that work. You stop asking whether life has meaning. Not because you've found a satisfying answer, but because the question becomes irrelevant. You're too busy living to wonder whether it matters. The wondering was always a sign of not living fully. The doing is the answer. The Stoics didn't promise happiness. They promised something better: equanimity. A mind that's unshaken by fortune or misfortune, that can meet life on its own terms. A mind that knows its value isn't determined by external validation or cosmic significance, but by the quality of its own character. That's the liberation. You don't need the universe to care about you. You don't need your life to matter in the grand scheme. You need to care about the quality of your own mind, the integrity of your own actions, the alignment between your values and your choices. Everything else is noise. Does life really have meaning? The question assumes meaning is something life has, like a property. It's not. Meaning is something you do, something you practice, something you create in how you respond to a fundamentally indifferent universe. And the moment you accept that, everything shifts. You are going to die. Your works will fade. Your name will be forgotten. And none of that changes what's available to you right now. The choice to live well, to act with courage, to meet difficulty without complaint, to create meaning in the doing rather than the having. The Stoics discovered this 2,000 years ago. It's still true. The only question is whether you're ready to stop searching and start building. The meaning of your life isn't hidden somewhere waiting to be discovered. It's here, in this moment, in what you do next. Stop looking. Start living.